Hey, hey, welcome to another episode of Business Mojo and Margaritas, where I get all up in your business in 20 minutes or less. I am Suzanne Proxa, your host, business strategist and coach for female entrepreneurs, and my jams just happen to be client attraction and marketing. So let's not delay any further. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Business Mojo and Margaritas. I am super stoked this morning to be on with somebody that I have been watching on social media, in podcasts, and all kinds of places lately. She is absolutely amazing, and that is Amy Coates. And she is, if you guys have ever seen the 2-Week Notice Society out there, that is her baby. So Amy, why don't you tell the audience about yourself and what you do and how you got into this and all of that good stuff?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on. My business is called 2-Week Notice Society, like you said, and I help women leave their 9-to-5 and start their online business. And a little bit about how that started is I was in the corporate world for 20 years and it just became kind of boring or mundane. I really wasn't interested in what I was doing anymore. I had done it for so long. I was a financial controller. So I always say, like, accounting stuff doesn't change too much. It's not that exciting. And so I kind of stumbled upon this online or virtual world. And my first business was actually taking all of the knowledge I had learned in corporate and offering it to virtual and local clients. And that scaled pretty quickly. And I was able to leave my 9-to-5 and I replaced my income pretty quickly as well. So while I was doing that, I had a lot of people asking me, how were you able to take that leap? And so I started coaching people for free, basically, and then realized that I needed to start charging people. And I just became more passionate about it because I could see the transformation in people and that they were actually passionate about what they were doing. And that's kind of how 2-Week Notice Society was created in a nutshell.
Awesome. So I can tell you, I know that there are a ton of people in the audience who are waiting for your gems on this topic, because let's face it. I mean, if you are somebody who's super driven and you've got a lot of ideas and you've got all these passions and you're sitting in a cubicle all day doing something boring for somebody else, it sucks out a little of your soul every day.
Yes.
Kind of like
yes.
what you talked about. So, you kind of talked a little bit about your journey already. I mean, as you went through that, what lessons did you learn along the way that might help some of the people out there who are trying to create their own escape?
Sure. I mean, it's not, to be brutally honest, it's not like rainbows and unicorns like people post about on Instagram or Facebook all the time. Oh. I had some fairly, some lows, because it was frustrating to, still have to be in this 9-to-5 because it was providing me an income, but I was so excited and passionate about what I was created on the side. And I just wanted more time to do that. Right. Yes. And so time management becomes a huge thing. You really have to put in the time and you sometimes don't see the results that you want at the beginning. And it can be a little frustrating. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to keep going. And I think also you get into this kind of these vanity numbers game, and maybe you only have 100 followers on Instagram. But what I always tell my people and what I've been told is give those 100 people everything you've got, and impacting 100 people's lives is much better than having 1,000 followers and no one's really caring about your message. So, just that kind of stuff can be really kind of hard to get through when you're first starting out, because it can be a bit of a slow crawl. But once you get to the place that your business starts to really take off, you'll appreciate those slow times sometimes, or the beginning,
Well, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned the vanity numbers,
Mm-hmm.
because I certainly know coaches. I've actually had clients who have really small groups, for instance, Facebook groups. They've got plenty of clients and they're getting them from those small groups.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a very good point to be made, that while everybody is glamorizing, massive numbers of followers,
Right.
you don't necessarily need it.
Right. And even starting out, I remember when I just had a few clients to start with, just giving them one, and not that I don't now, but just giving them everything you can in making such a great impact on them is so important as well. And I think people think that when you first start out, you have to have a lot of clients and be bringing in all this money, and it seems overwhelming. But you really just have to start taking those first steps and get those first few clients, and then, just give them everything that you have and make that huge impact.
So that's a great lead into my next question. So, if there's somebody out there who's thinking, okay, now I'm feeling a little more encouraged about this, what steps can they start to take to actually start moving in the direction of leaving that 9 to 5 for good?
Sure. First, I want to put out there that make sure that you have a business that you're passionate about. One of the things that I see people, sometimes when they come to me and they've started their side business already, it's sometimes they duplicate what they see other people doing. And maybe it's not something that they're passionate about, and they just think, oh, I can make money doing this, so I'm going to do that. And it's not something that they're truly passionate about. And I warn the people that I work with that that's fine, but what's going to happen in a year or two is you're going to feel like you're back in your 9 to 5, right? Because you're not motivated by that business.
Yeah.
And then second, I think, is to just start sharing once you have decided on what it is your business is, but just start sharing your message. I think one of the things that I'm constantly working on is sharing my personal journey. And it was hard for me at first because I didn't think anyone cared about what I was going through or what I had gone through. But that's actually what people relate to, is those personal stories, and not just selling a program or course or product or, whatever it is that you are doing. So, and that can be done even before maybe you have an actual product. You can start sharing your journey and to see who's resonated with that, and start to narrow down that ideal client too.
Yeah, I love that, because, I will tell people, it's not uncommon, as to have somebody who's kind of in a little bit of a state of confusion. They're not really sure which direction to go yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell those people, and make sure that you at least, get out there and you're trying to build those relationships while you go through this phase.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. I do have a lot of people that will say to me, I don't want my 9 to 5 to know that I'm doing this, which was my situation. And I always say, well, you can post in closed Facebook groups. No one's going to know that. But just start, like you said, building those relationships. You don't have to vocalize that you're selling something. Just share what, maybe you've experienced, what struggles you have, something positive. You see people posting things like that a lot. So that's how you can start to build those relationships and get more eyes on you as well.
Awesome. So I kind of cut you off there. Did you have more steps?
Oh,
What I do.
My mind starts going too sometimes. So I'm always like, I think fear, if we want to talk about fear, I talk about that a lot. I don't know if it's necessarily a step, but it's kind of a general topic. But and I think we all do, but I have to deal with fear a lot myself. Like putting myself out there, getting on Facebook Live, I've gotten a lot better. But that's something that I talk about a lot because the people that want to leave their 9-to-5, they're very fearful, right? But that never really goes away. And I think it just kind of changes for us in different ways, or we learn to manage it better. But I also always say, is the fear bigger, or is it more fearful to leave your job and to have this business that you love? Or is it more fearful to stay in your job and be miserable or upset or affecting relationships for the next, how many years? So you sometimes have to weigh those instances. That's a great thought. A lot of times when we look at fear and different mindset things, we're always looking at it the opposite way. Mm-hmm. So I think that is definitely a good thing to think about, if fear is actually what's keeping you there. Right. Right. So question for you, when I left my very good paying job to have my online business, I was dazzled by all the people telling me that I could make 6 figures in 2 months. And quite frankly, I tell this story, I left too soon, and I warn people to be prepared for this. So do you have any advice for people as far as how to know when it's time? Sure. I actually just did a challenge in my group about this because I have become a huge advocate for people to have replaced their income before they give their 2-week notice. But everyone's situation is different, and maybe they don't need to replace their income, or maybe they have different goals or something like that. But yes, I suggest that you figure out what it is, or what amount it is that you need to either have saved or that you have coming in your side business that is going to be sustainable. And there's, some sort of longevity to it, so that when you give your notice, it's not like, okay, I have 2 months worth, now what? You know what I mean? Like, yes. I'm really, in coming from a financial background, I really like to hone in on that message of creating a sustainable business, but also setting yourself up for that success before you give your 2-week notice. I personally, cut back on some expenses when I was going through having to save, saving, I call it a freedom fund, but I was saving for that. I cut back on, Netflix and things like that. And then I made sure that I had enough clients to replace my income. And then once I secured that client that I knew that, it was like a long-term contract and that I would have for a long time, that's when I was able to give my notice. So that was a big day. Awesome. Yeah, no kidding. So obviously, through this journey, before you leave the 9-to-5, after you leave the 9-to-5, there are a ton of lessons, learning opportunities, mistakes, etc. Mm-hmm. How do you leverage those to actually help you, in the process, leave the 9-to-5 and have success after and all of that? Any thoughts? I think one of the biggest things that I learned when I was going through the journey is at first I wasn't consistent in working on my business, meaning I would spend a week working really hard on, working in my business and getting things set up and engaging and doing things like that. And then I would take a week or 2 off because I think I would just exhaust myself. You know what I mean? So it was like this constant roller coaster. And I see that kind of a lot with people, because I think they get like really gung-ho, and then they, like I said, burn themselves out, and then they have to kind of start over again almost. And so my advice is always to don't burn yourself out. Don't go like gung-ho about it, but just be consistent. And then that way it never feels like this, like burden or just like so much to do when you have to start again. You're just always kind of staying consistent with what you're doing. I think that was one of my biggest mistakes in the beginning.
Well, I think that the universe just planted that little tip for me today. Have you heard of the summit that I just ran?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, seriously. For the listeners, I want you guys to understand that this happens to everybody. And I really do want to curl up in a ball in a corner for a couple weeks. But I'm not going to. I have more plans for cool things. But still.
Yes.
I do remember the time I disappeared for like a month or two. And I want to emphasize the point that Amy made is if you disappear, you do have to work harder to come back. I mean, I had a super engaged Facebook group at the time. It's actually the one I have now, but far less people. And it was hard work to get that engagement back. So don't disappear.
Yeah.
Stay consistent.
Figure out what that sweet spot is for you, like for working, and just keep consistent with that. But yeah, I agree. It is hard.
Absolutely. So, question for you. So you're super passionate about this. So, what about what you're doing in your business has you super passionate and keeps you going, day to day? What do you love about it?
Well, I love the flexibility of it and the freedom of it. I love, so this is what I think this is what drives me is I see that by impacting women's lives, and I can see people in my Facebook group or when I work with them, like a light bulb almost turns on sometimes, or they get super excited about something. And that motivates me. But I also feel like the more women that are happier, that can, do things that they're proud of and empowered by, I think the bigger impact in the world we can make. Because I feel like women can really make that change. And I see more people doing that online, which you're doing it, and other people and other Facebook groups we're in, I can see people really making that ripple effect. And I feel like if women are happier, they're going to be happier with their kids, with their family. And I feel like, the impact of that is going to be huge, other than just having a business.
Yes, I agree. Definitely a big difference. Because let's face it, I mean, when you're going to the 9 to 5 every day, for instance, again, it can be really soul crushing.
Yes.
And that, it does. It makes you cranky and tired and not wanting to get out of bed in the morning. And some people drink gallons of coffee. This is the health coach in me speaking up, and it's, the freedom and the impact and everything, definitely, you can just see it makes people happier, more fulfilled, et cetera, online. So,
and when I was really miserable in my 9 to 5, like the last year and a half, I would say, my health did go, I wasn't prioritizing my health. I was crying on my way to work. But I also was taking that like anger out on other people that didn't deserve to have that done to them. You know what I mean? It was like,
I do know what you mean.
I was like, I couldn't really take it, although I distanced myself from people that I worked with, but I couldn't really take it out on them. Like I couldn't yell at them for things but I could do it at home for no reason. So I always do say that comes out somewhere, and usually to the people that don't deserve it.
Yeah. So I always promise people that they're going to get like some juicy tidbits from my podcast. What are like 1 to 3 things that you just want to make sure, even if you've talked about them already, that you really want to hit home on for people who are going through this journey and maybe are feeling apprehensive or they have the fear, they just don't know where to start or if it's for them.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing that we haven't talked about yet is that is hard for me sometimes to even grasp is when you're in a 9 to 5, you go to work for 8 hours, let's say, usually more, and you get a paycheck. When you're in this world, like an entrepreneur, to begin with, you could be putting in 40 hours a week and not be getting that big of a paycheck, right?
Yeah.
But eventually you could put in 8 hours a week and get an even bigger paycheck. Like time and money is not correlated. And I think that was really hard for me to understand. There is a time investment to begin with, but it's a much better outcome if you stay consistent and stick with it, than if you were in a corporate job where I was just getting, 1 to 3% raises every year. I just kind of, regardless of, I was putting in a lot more time, but that was always going to be my outcome. So I think it's hard for people to understand that in the entrepreneur world.
Gotcha. Awesome.
The second tip I would say is to just get visible. I think, 2 years ago, I probably was the type of person that would never think I'd be doing a podcast or be doing Facebook Lives. I just was very introverted. When I first started doing Facebook Lives, I was like reading from a script and it was really awkward and uncomfortable.
Oh, I have deleted all videos from my health coaching days.
Oh my gosh, it was terrible. Like I would have my boyfriend hold this piece of paper and then would record it. It was terrible.
Oh.
But I've gotten I'm not great, but I'm much better, much better. But just, if you're not that type of person, to just know that, that's how we all started most likely. And just getting visible, and the more you do it, the better it will be. And then I just think that everything you want is truly on the other side of fear. And I think just getting over that hump will just, sometimes you just have to do it.
Yes. Take the leap.
Take the
And that really is what it feels like sometimes.
I know. I always say it's like the weirdest feeling when I gave my notice. It was like I was super happy. I had this weight lifted off my shoulder, but yet I was like, am I really doing the right thing? It's just, you just have these mixed bag of emotions.
Yes. Sheer terror at points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all worked out. It's all worked. I can't imagine myself being back in a 9 to 5.
Yeah. So I am sure that there are people listening who want to know where to find you. And I know I have seen that you have posted about some really cool things that you've got that might be helpful for people. Do you mind sharing all of that with the audience?
Sure. I have a webinar coming up. I'll be doing it actually every week till the end of the year. And you can find that link on my website. Everything is actually 2 Week Notice Society. So my website is 2weeknoticesociety.com. My Instagram is 2 Week Notice Society. Facebook is 2 Week Notice Society. Pinterest is, I think that's pretty much everywhere I am. So 2 Week Notice Society.
Awesome. See, I like it when people do that, where they're consistent.
It's
I did that with mine because it was thoroughly confusing before.
Oh,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. I think that there's going to be a lot of women out there who are feeling more encouraged and realizing that they're not the only ones that feel this way, and also cry in the car on the way to the 9 to 5. We've been there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So you're an absolute delight, and I was so thrilled to have you, and I hope that you have just continued amazing success in what you're doing.
Thank you so much. You're so sweet. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And to the listeners, thank you for listening to another episode. And if you have not jumped into my Facebook group yet with the same name, Business Mojo and Margaritas, head over to fempreneurs.biz. But just make sure you answer the questions so that we know that you are in business. So thanks again, everybody, and see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. I'm so glad you decided to roll with me yet again. Hey, if you loved it, please give me a rating and some little comments on iTunes. And hey, if you're thinking that working together with my crazy self sounds like a fantastic idea, hunt me down, SuzanneProxa.com. That K is before the S. You can find all of my coaching information, my blog, my courses, all of the things, all right in one spot. And with that, I will see you in the next episode, gorgeous.